abandoned ship.
Oh no!
Here we go.
Can I persuade you to join us for a drink? It's a tradition.
Here, here.
Jar Jar, homie, my main man, quickly. Before the Separatists attack, get into the escape pod.
Hey! This is escape, then we're the pod.
Welcome back to Star Wars Escape Pod and our fourth review of the Book of Boba Fett, Chapter 4, The Gathering Storm. We're about to get into one of the best episodes of the season, is what I thought at least, and we've got a few voices on the show today that is going to be participating in this little chat. We have Darian returning as well as our co-host Blake, and we're going to bring them on in just a second. But before we start things up, just wanted to say, shoot us an email with what your thoughts are on both of this podcast as well as the Book of Boba Fett. We'd love to hear from you guys. Let's get into it.
Another happy landing.
All right. Welcome back to the show. Blake,
Thank you.
Darian.
How's it going?
Good. It's going well. How'd you guys like this episode?
It was fun. I enjoyed it quite a bit. You know, wrote down a decent amount of notes, so it's a good sign.
Yeah, I loved it. Maybe I liked the second episode too, but this one was fantastic. I love the setup for The Mandalorian, as I'm sure we'll talk about shortly.
Definitely, yeah. This was a fantastic episode. I gotta say, this is probably my favorite one out of the whole thing. And I love a really good revenge story. So I don't know about you guys. Have you seen The Count of Monte Cristo?
You're talking about the Sarlacc here, right? Revenge on the Sarlacc.
I'm talking about the whole thing, man. The Sarlacc, the Niktos on the speeder bikes, all of it.
My
you know,
gosh. That was the best scene in my opinion.
Yeah, it was awesome.
So
man.
savage.
It was so great.
I felt like we finally got to see Boba Fett as Boba Fett.
Yeah.
Right.
Until then, it was like an imposter.
Yeah.
In the imposter comic.
What if he just drove past him with a seismic charge?
Or just
And just did that.
that'd be good too. At least
Yeah.
he didn't
It wouldn't be nearly as intense.
send down like apology cards.
I gotta set the seismic charge as my new ringtone or something.
Oh my gosh.
This thing is now legendary.
We can get into that at that point.
Yeah.
I got some thoughts on that.
Yeah, definitely. So major spoilers ahead. For anyone tuning in. Just heads up. So let's start off with the beginning where Boba Fett's spying on Jabba's temple, and this is the majority of this episode was actually a flashback sequence. A lot
which
of
is
it.
funny because afterwards, when I first finished watching it, it didn't feel like it was a flashback episode. And then I rewatched it to take down notes. I'm like, wait, I like skipped ahead. I'm like, wow, there's only like 10 minutes that isn't flashback.
Right. Yeah, what'd you think of this, Darian?
I loved it. Well, especially have we seen Jabba's hut like this in depth before? I don't know. I don't watch much of the extended universe stuff, but that was cool. This whole episode just really brought things together. Even we saw the flares from the Mandalorian and how we literally saw Boba's feet in the Mandalorian, and now we've seen the other side of that from this show. I thought that was so cool, and they tie the music together. But that's why I love the show so much is they do such a good job of tying in extended universe stuff with the Black Wookiee, Black, what is it?
Yeah, Black
or
Chrysanthemum, yeah.
Chrysanthemum, yeah. But you could also enjoy it and just watch the normal Star Wars movies and then watch this and enjoy it. But they also make it fun for viewers that watch all of Star Wars and all of the content.
Right.
It's fantastic.
Oh, absolutely.
It's all woven together.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. The beginning of this episode was very interesting, and to get back to your comment about the temple, about the complexity of how much we've never seen that amount of space or the amount of rooms that we have just now.
I had no idea it was that big.
And yeah.
I didn't either because Return of the Jedi and even Mandalorian, we see it and everything. It's always just the front door and then Jabba's throne room. And so
Yeah.
you're led to believe you just walk in and you're there.
Yeah.
This show is gonna be like the Prisoner of Azkaban of Star Wars. You know, it's like we saw a decent amount of the castle and, you know, Hogwarts in the first two movies, but now it's just like boom, you get a whole other perspective. You get that, you know, like a whole other. You see the other side of it, kind of thing, and the hangar and all these rooms that we never saw before, right? So it's pretty cool to see that, and you know, that's I guess skipping a little ahead towards when Fennec helps him out, but when we started off this episode,
We talk about that a little bit though, because what's relevant to this conversation is, so when Boba flew the Slave One out, did he go through that front door that everyone keeps walking in? Because it looks like that's the only door big enough for a ship to go through. We never really see another door.
no, it's a different door.
Because they snuck into the side entrance, but
Yeah.
we never actually saw the door that they left out of, like from the exterior.
Well, yeah, we did. So at the beginning of the episode, he's spying on the temple, but he's spying specifically on like this hangar bay area, which has its own massive.
It's not
door.
the same door as Return of the Jedi.
No, there's two big doors.
It looked the same.
Yeah, so there's two big doors. There's one to the hangar, which is kind of like buried underground in kind of like the cliff that the temple is built on. And then the main temple building has its own big massive door, which is the one that I believe we see R2 and 3PO at. Yeah.
I'm glad we talked about that, because I thought they were the same thing.
Right. Yeah. No. So you know, Boba's spying on the temple and all that stuff, and one of the coolest things happens in this entire episode, which like I literally just sat up in my seat when I saw it, was you see the bang and the flare of Mandalorian, you know, off in the distance, going after Fennec Shand with the kid, right?
And you even hear like some sort of flute too, right?
Yeah,
like, there's a sound effect as well.
Yeah,
I remember I was during that part, I was kind of looking at my phone, like I was researching something, and I just look up because I heard the music, and I'm like, oh my.
I saw the flare in the sky. I knew right away. I was like, this is it. This is like maybe where we're gonna see him, like, you know, see what's 100%. Going on down there. But, you know, he's riding a bantha, so it takes him a while to get there. But.
Takes him a long time, yeah. She's sitting there bleeding out, and he's just taking his time.
Yeah, but, you know, I know at least I brought it up at one point. I don't know how many of you guys out there have been speculating about this, but, you know, I always thought that we would see that Fennec Shand, Boba, first time meeting, how he saves her and everything like that. I just had no idea that it was going to happen midway through this show, because this is now chapter 4 out of 7.
Agreed.
Right.
I mean, it's still flashback, but because that basically says this is the end of the flashback, right? Because we kind of know what happens after this.
I'm skipping forward a little bit when I say this, but when he comes out of the bacta tank and the bacta tank says, "You are fully healed, sir," and then you also see that full transition of him sitting on the throne, as well as him like waking up in the water, and you see the overlay of the helmet on his face, and then it kind of ghosts away, and then he gets out and he's all rejuvenated, and it's kind of like an end to the nightmares that he first started off in the first episode with, where he says to Fennec, like, "The nightmares are back," you know, or whatever he says. Right? Yeah. So
I think they very conclusively said this is the last episode with flashbacks.
Yeah, I think so. And
it makes sense because we're running out of time.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're running out of time.
Not that what we haven't seen is like it's important, but yeah.
But I think the point you're getting at is each episode has been like 60 to 75% flashback. So we kind of need to get on with the rest of the story.
Yeah, definitely.
There's another thing in that scene that I think was a big surprise and a change in canon, at least as far as I knew, that you kind of skipped over.
Oh, which was
that we found out banthas are carnivorous. Or at least omnivores.
That's true. I guess he gives a bantha like a
chicken leg or something.
I never actually considered that before. I mean, like, what do banthas eat?
I thought they were cows, so I thought they'd eat like vegetation, but there's no natural real vegetation. That's what I mean. So I thought they were just fed like grains. Right. But you see them wandering around the desert. So
I would love to know what they eat. I never thought about it until he tosses him some of the chicken or whatever he's eating. Yeah.
Yeah. But they're not, but at the same time, they're not like proper carnivores, because they have teeth like cows and horses. And they don't have eyes at the front of their head. Right. So they're not like hunters. So they don't naturally eat meat. So at least as like a main meal, right? So I think they're omnivores, maybe more like a bear. They just kind of eat whatever they can find.
Yeah. Yeah,
But it'd be
guess
weird
so.
to see a carcass with a bunch of banthas eating it. Just saying.
Right. um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's nothing. I mean, we know
So
that
cows.
trees grow, obviously, because he's
Tree.
got the one tree, I guess maybe. But I don't know. I mean, this is a great question. Like, what do banthas eat in a desert that like has nothing, right? And they're so slow. They're not hunters, so
Yeah, definitely
it's
not.
really confusing. Yeah, I don't really know exactly what George was
Pothole.
thinking.
I think we got to tweet Pablo. This is a
Tweet Pablo?
problem.
Yeah, Pablo can answer that. That'll have him puzzled for months.
Pablo, stop dodging the question. Just answer it.
Or we'll ask Dave, and Dave will go to Marvel Comics. Hey guys, we gotta make a comic and fill this plot hole. I want it in a week. Want to see a draft on my desk on Monday.
Oh
We
my
messed it
gosh.
up.
Probably. Yeah, bring in some like ridiculous thing, and maybe like mana falls from the sky when it rains. Very very rarely.
Yeah, exactly. Or more horrifyingly, they just eat people. They live off the Tuscans. Who knows?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they feed the dead Tuskens to them.
So we see Boba actually save Fennec Shand in her, in all her glory, sitting there, lying there half dead on the sand, and he brings her to the most interesting of places, which I never would have suspected even exists on Tatooine. Mind you, does explain a lot as to why we've had these 4 cybernetic people show up in the last episode. There's something called a mod parlor on Tatooine, and it's basically just like a tattoo shop, but you go there and
I thought
buy
that was so strange.
mods. Yeah.
Like, just like pop in. It's like, yeah, like I was wondering if you got time to remove my arm and maybe put something steel there instead. Just casually.
Yeah, I mean, I like. What are you guys' thoughts on this? Because like,
Has there been anything in the past that's like
Well,
is someone modded?
like,
Is that the term?
there is cyborgs in Star Wars? But
Yeah,
it's
because
just-
Anakin,
Yes,
right?
yes, but I mean,
and
like,
Luke.
Is there anything like we saw her in The Mandalorian? Like, did we know she was modded before this episode?
No, she'd never been modded before. He brought her there literally to save her life, and then paid off.
Right,
to
but
die.
that took place before The Mandalorian, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, no, during the Mandalorian.
Right.
So like most of the
I
flashbacks.
think I know what you're getting at.
Yeah.
During the Mandalorian, I didn't know she was modded either.
Yeah.
But they revealed it at the start of the Boba Fett series.
Yeah, so
like,
she-
first
and-
episode.
Yeah, so she pulls.
I wonder
off
if it's
her-
gonna be like, if it's just to like help her live, or if it's gonna have some sort of superpower. We'll call it. You know how usually they get like gadgets or something. Like
Right.
maybe
Got
she'll
iron
be able to like
stomach.
spew. Yeah.
Yeah.
something,
She can,
I don't know.
yeah.
Eat anything.
I mean, she hasn't
She can't be
revealed.
poisoned.
She hasn't revealed anything so far, but yeah, I mean, it actually explains a lot, because in the Mandalorian episode when they're on Tython and they, Boba finally kind of reveals himself for the first time. Fennec is there, right, and she's got her sniper pointed at the child sitting on the rock and everything, and Boba wants his armor back and everything like that. And when she kind of comes down from the cliff, he kind of she kind of explains how she is still alive, because Din Djarin's just like, Fennec, like, how are you still alive, kind of thing, and then she says Boba Fett, and then she pulls off this like kind of cloth part of her waist, I guess it's like this Velcro thing, and then you see all the machinery, and she says,
Okay,
Boba
I
Fett
just forgot about that scene. I guess.
yeah. So it's like this is finally kind of the episode in Book of Boba that overlaps with the Mandalorian, because all the flashbacks we got before were pretty much before Mandalorian. In those 5 years, I guess, which happened very quickly in 3 episodes worth of flashbacks.
Yeah,
but,
it was really fast.
yeah. But yeah, it's kind of neat to see how that even came about, because once again, it's like I guess it's not that weirdly enough, I was more weirded out the first time I saw the cyborg kids and the scooters. I think it was the
Yeah.
scooters. It's got to be the Vestas. The Vespas were the
I think
ones
it was
that
all
got,
of it. They didn't feel, like we talked about this last week. It didn't feel Star Wars. I feel like they're Doctor Who.
Just don't bring them back. Just
Yeah.
let's just
My-
all forget it happened.
Yeah, I'm gonna change my answer. My favorite part of this episode wasn't the bikers getting gunned down. It was that those cyborg high school kids weren't in this episode.
What if he brings the slave one like back to wherever and then shoots down the people on the Vespas. Just
I got
Someone should like supercut and like switch it out.
I gotta say one of the first things that I thought of when I saw this techno-y kind of plays was Spy Kids. Like it got me thinking about Spy Kids, man. And then
We
the
talked
rest of
about
the
that last
episode,
week,
I'm
too.
gonna bring it up like twice now, like more through the episode or something like that, because there was another thing that was like straight out of Spy Kids. But here, like, listen to this music. Hold on a second here. Isn't that like straight out of Spy Kids 3?
I will say the music in this episode I thought was severely lacking.
It's like super techno.
It is very techno-y and it felt really odd.
Be here. She needs modification. No walk-ins. Appointment only.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it was an interesting kind of vibe I got from that place, but you know, it fit the scene, it fit the characters that were in there and everything like that. It's just I never pictured something like that being on Tatooine of all places, you know, like maybe the lower levels of Coruscant or Nar Shaddaa or like a really bustling city place, but not in the middle of the desert.
I guess because they did try to make it essentially tattoo parlor, so maybe it is as common as tattoo parlors.
Maybe. I mean, you know,
Because I think the only real influence they have for it is from the D&D books, right? Because that's the only time you really see anyone outside of a hospital or like getting stuff. Because there is backstory in a lot of those game books as far as like the process or whatever.
That's true. Yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts, Darian?
Yeah, I didn't. First of all, wasn't it some sort of a cameo? I'm not familiar with what it was, but I was just reading about the episode. And the guy that was doing the modifications, I think he wasn't just like an extra. I think he was maybe a cameo of some sort. I was familiar with the name.
Oh, I didn't actually recognize him, but a musician cameo.
Yeah, he's like a bass guitarist or a rapper or something, like a bass guitarist rapper or something I read.
Oh,
anyway,
okay.
I thought I don't know.
Thundercat, that's his name.
Yeah, Thundercat. I don't know why I didn't think of that. Thundercat. Looks like a Thundercat.
Honestly,
Thundercat?
I still don't know who he is. I still don't know who he is.
Yeah, like you, Josh. I felt the actual like mod parlor was a little bit out of place, but I can also see how like if it's popular, like a tattoo shop, like kind of
They just
it
pop
kind of
up
fits.
all over.
Yeah, it kind of fits the vibe of the city.
Right. Yeah.
It was some pretty clean work though. Like I don't know much about modding, but I looked at his work and it was pretty nice.
Yeah.
It's true.
You know,
So what's odd is
Thundercat knows what he's doing.
Boba asked for a covering. He's like, "What? You want to cover all that up?" And the first thing I thought of, yeah, you're on Tatooine. Everything's covered in sand. Why would you leave it open?
It's true.
It's gonna immediately get full of sand and jammed up.
I don't know. Here's the thing. Here's just my hot take on that whole debate. Right, the Vespa chase kind of sucked. It was a bit slow in the last episode, but this episode explains the cyborg kids. And then my other opinion about this whole thing, cyborg kids don't not fit Star Wars. It's just they seem like they're in the wrong place. That's all, right? More weirder is, I don't know why, but somehow this mod parlor kind of justified why these kids were on Tatooine in the first place. But then that's replaced with a new question: is why is there a mod parlor on Tatooine in the first place in the middle of nowhere? Like this place wasn't even close to a city from what I could tell. Like in the shot,
I would think that mods are very expensive, and everyone on Tatooine is dirt poor.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's like, you know, I hope no one takes offense to this, but it's kind of like the Star Wars version of Mexico. Like it's kind of it's stylized to be that way. Whereas like a lot of places in Mexico or like in the southern parts of like the States, it's like lost this, lost that. In Tatooine, it's Moss. It's MOS. Moss this, Moss that, you know. So like, you know, there is supposed to be this very Western kind of Southern, You know, it's like the cowboys and,
Like an old West town.
It's the old West town. It's the old Mexican styled, old West town, right? Like Mexico and the old Wild West. Like it really has this like common theme, right? So it's kind of supposed to be like that, and a lot of the society built around the world of Tatooine is kind of inspired off of real world places like
it makes
Mexico,
sense. It's like a
right?
lawless town, right?
Yeah,
like,
and like
kind of anything goes.
Right.
Whoever has the biggest gun is in charge.
Yeah, so like I don't know how it is for like kids in Mexico these days. Maybe you walk into like the middle of the desert, there's a tattoo parlor. It could be a thing. Like I just
Do you think
don't
maybe
know,
this
right?
was all just to explain her like mods though? Like even the kids, will call them, that we saw last episode, like maybe they're literally only brought in to explain why there's a mod parlor.
Yeah.
And there's a mod parlor to explain why she's modded.
How she survived.
Maybe that's like too like big picture or like that seems like
I see what you're saying. I think that's entirely.
Especially if we don't see these kids again. I do think we will see them again because Boba's gonna need some muscle coming up, but
and target practice.
Yeah.
But no, that's actually a very good point. It does feel like it's all kind of like wrangled together to just make an explanation.
Right. Well,
there's one other thing in this mod parlor shop that is directly relevant to something Josh and I brought up over and over and over again watching Bad Batch. I want to know if he remembers what that was.
Oh, the multi-purpose arm.
Yeah, we finally see a Swiss Army arm.
Yeah,
that we wanted Echo to have for the entire series.
Yeah, he keeps walking around with this like this stupid like screwdriver.
Yeah,
and it's like, dude, like pull out like the torch or the blaster arm or something like that or whatever, right? Like something a little more useful.
Why does this super advanced? He's on like the Navy SEAL SWAT team, right?
Yeah.
And he doesn't have like a kick-ass hand that has like a million different functions. That should be his thing.
Yeah,
he needs to visit this Tatooine.
Yeah, that's got to be it.
Him and Thundercat gotta set up a hangout.
Instead, they just give it to this random guy at a tattoo shop.
So, Fennec's alive and everything like that, and she wakes up outside the fire pit, and her and Boba have a little bit of chat, and she actually helps him break into the temple. She uses this little mini drone thing, which is a pretty neat little gadget. And we see all these parts of the castles that we haven't seen before, which is like super cool.
Mm-hmm.
And another touching moment in this sequence was Boba says goodbye to his bantha, and it was actually a lot more emotional than I was expecting. I mean,
it's true.
I mean, he was this this badass bounty hunter saying goodbye to a bantha of all things.
It's his steed.
It's his steed. Yeah, it's like once again an old West reference, right? And he sends it off into the wild and
and I think they were also showing that Boba, I guess, has an affinity for animals, so that's why he likes the Rancor.
I guess so. Yeah, I guess so. This is also something that I didn't mention last time that I probably should have, because we just watched the holiday special. But Jon Favreau loves the holiday special, all right? And he gets jokes about it all the time, but he's a guy that loves the holiday special. In the holiday special, there's an animated short called The Faithful Wookiee, and it's I don't know, 8 minutes long. It's on Disney Plus. And Boba's first appearance ever was in this short, and he shows up riding this giant
dinosaur
creature thing. Yeah, this giant dinosaur. So when he says to Danny Trejo's character, the Beastmaster, that I want to ride it. And then he's got his like setbacks, whatever, but he's like, I've ridden beasts larger than this one or something, right? He like kind of subtly mentions he's ridden stuff that's bigger before.
Does that mean that Boba's dinosaur is canon?
I don't know if that. I don't know if
technically
it's
G-level canon. Don't forget.
Right? Yeah. Exactly. Who knows? Right? Like, I mean, he could either be referencing. It might be a little Easter egg, like a drop in the bucket, like Jon Favreau kind of saying, like, "Hey, I love the holiday special. Like, screw you guys. Like, he rode a dinosaur kind of thing." Or he could be talking about a bantha, and I don't know in what world a bantha is bigger than a rancor.
A rancor.
Yeah. Anyway,
I don't think so.
Wanted to bring it up. But yeah, you're right. Like he's got an affinity for riding a lot of animals. So
yeah, it's interesting. I mean, technically, old school canon of Mandalorians is they're all like that, right? I mean, they kind of bring that up in Mandalorian season 1, where it's like your ancestors wrote the Great Mythosaur.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And speaking of which, I know we had this conversation a while ago, and recently somebody confirmed this. It was either Robert, John, or Dave, or Tamora. It was one of the four people, but they actually said straight up like that. Yeah, Boba's not really a Mandalorian. He wears the Mandalorian armor, but he's actually not a Mandalorian.
He says that in Mandalorian season 2.
Yeah, he says that. Yeah, he says that as well in the show. He doesn't. Well, he doesn't say I'm not a Mandalorian. He just says I don't have an allegiance. But yeah, it's now that you mentioned it, I kept forgetting to bring that up. But yeah, more recently in one of the interviews, like they said that, and I remember speculating about this when we had Jess on the podcast, that one episode. We were talking about who's the most Mandalorian out of all the Mandalorians we've seen, because
the original Mandalorian is no longer Mandalorian. The guy who inspired the race.
Yeah, Boba Fett's not a Mandalorian. Jango's not really a Mandalorian, and I guess Bo-Katan's the most Mandalorian that we've ever met, because even Din Djarin, who's a Mandalorian, is actually a Mandalorian of the Watch, like a kind of like this offshoot branch of the Mandos, right? They have their "this is the way" like cult thing going on. So
that's a good point.
It's kind of interesting, but all these shows based on the Mandalorian, and it's just it's a false truth. Yeah.
But then was Jango raised by Mandalorians?
Yeah. So in the book of actually, it was in the Mandalorian episode. Boba's armor has a chain code that he pops up on a hologram. And in that hologram is the name Jaster Muriel, which is actually Jango's Mandalorian kind of godfather figure. It was the guy who actually raised him after his parents were slaughtered. So there's a bit of a connection there, but that's the only canon mention that he ever was connected to.
That's a name that also came up in the old
Republic Commando. Yeah, the Republic Commando books in the EU brought him up a lot, as well as the old comic books.
Travis, I think, was the writer.
Yeah, there was an old comic series called Open Seasons, Jango Fett, and it was all about Jango's origin. And that also had him in it as a primary character and stuff. But anyway, we're getting a little off topic here. But yeah, this was cool, like seeing a lot of the temple and everything like that. The next scene kind of really got me. This is where the next Spy Kids reference comes in. Fennec uses a burning marker to make their way inside the cell bars of like the sewers or whatever to break in. Straight out of Spy Kids, I kid you not. Like that was like they used a burning marker to get their parents out of the cell in Floop's temple. And it's the same deal here. Boba and Fennec breaking their way in with like a laser marker. And they literally, like, she draws on the thing exactly.
Yeah, it like kept cutting when she like took away her pen or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And it was one of in Spy Kids, Danny Trejo's character, Uncle Machete. He has like a company that makes spy gadgets. And when Junie and Carmen kind of rob his place when they escape, they steal the plane and a bunch of stuff. And they got all these gadgets when they end up at Floop's temple to save their parents. And Carmen pulls out this like red marker thing and draws on these bars to get through them. Well, like the Floop guy is, flipping through his keys trying to find the right one to unlock the cell. And this marker, these lines on the bars burn through like acid. And she's able to it's like pops off the bars as if they were, just severed right in half kind of thing. But I thought that was so cool. I was like, this is like A grade reference right here.
Other than that, he's just reusing the same like script material.
Yeah.
I also really like the scene right after that where Boba chews some bubble gum and then puts it on the wall, and you find out there's a miniature spy camera in it. And they use that to avoid the guards.
Well, using this little drone thing was not far off of all the cameras that Junie's putting around the temple and Spy Kids. I mean, like it was the same deal, right? Like they had this little camera thing floating down the halls, and it was really, really quite something to see all these little references. I was like, wow, like
gadgets.
Because Spy Kids, I love Spy Kids growing up. Like, I mean, I still quite like those movies. They're pretty cheesy and stuff, and they're made for kids and all that. But I had such a love for it when I was younger. That's never really gone away. They break in. What'd you guys think of the fry cook? The Grievous vibes?
Yeah, that was funny.
Literally.
Just like spinning cooking knives. I enjoyed that quite a lot. Except he had 6 arms. You notice that? He one up Grievous.
One up Grievous, yeah.
And
Yeah.
have we seen that droid before?
The other one
I think we've seen the little droid that's like running around. I think he was in Clone Wars, right? Or like at least.
You're right. Yeah. So there was 2 out of the 3 droids that we've seen before. We never saw the knife one before, but his callback to Grievous was pretty funny. And then we saw the butler droid because he's the one that tells R2 and 3PO where they're gonna go when they're captured, right? He's like,
Yes.
I have need of you on the master sail barge, you know.
Yeah.
It's like that guy. And then the little rabbit droid.
The rat catcher.
Yeah, the little rabbit thing. That thing showed up in Clone Wars a lot.
Yeah. One of my notes was we finally get to see that droid in live action, and it looks just as goofy.
It does.
It's got like this huge butt and then this really tiny body and these like spindly legs.
Yeah. They were, for anyone listening who doesn't know what we're talking about, seen Clone Wars, they're the little rabbit droid things that are usually walking around all the separatist leaders. It was a separatist droid to use, I think. Like it was.
I was trying to remember where specifically I could recall it from earlier. At first, I thought it was the droid that Cad Bane used, but it's not.
No, it's not that one. But they did have an appearance in the theatrical animated release for the Clone Wars in 2008. There was a droid that gave General Lothsum this. I think it was General Lothsum. I don't know. Maybe I'm mixing up the name with somebody else. But it was that general at the very beginning that sits down with Kenobi and has tea while they discuss terms of surrender, and then Anakin and Ahsoka have to disable the shield. There's a little rabbit droid or something that delivers him a hologram thing. He like puts it in his ears, and then the ears fold up, and so it's elevated like half a foot more or whatever. And then there was another one. I think in the bomb episode, in the Blue Shadow virus episode, where Jar Jar and Padme are trying to disable or find all these bombs around the bunkers of Naboo, this laboratory that's been built underground, and one of these little rabbit droids takes one of the bombs and runs away, and is actually responsible for setting it off, kind of thing, and that's what releases the virus in that episode, but. There's a few times that droid showed up, and this one was a slightly different color. It wasn't the standard like teal kind of purplish blue that we've normally seen him in, but it was so neat to see that droid in live action.
Yeah. That whole scene I thought was just so ridiculous, though. It was. Have you guys ever seen the movie Mouse Hunt?
No.
Oh, okay, man, it's a classic film. Definitely recommend checking it out. But it's. The plot of that movie is these 2 brothers, they inherit a house, but inside the house there's this mouse that they can't get rid of, and the mouse is extremely clever, and they're like not able to catch it, and there's just all these foibles of them trying to stop the mouse, right? And I felt like that's what was going on between Boba and this droid. It's like chasing around the droid's like going through the oven.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
No, that's exactly what happened in Clone Wars when those droids show up. A lot of the time, they're the ones that kind of scamper away with
because they're like
trying to catch
rodents.
it. Yeah,
with the ears.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You think when these shows are created and we see like droids we've already seen before, like they must create like what the show's gonna be, and then someone must go in and like basically like put little Easter eggs kind of things, like, oh, we need a droid here. Let's use this droid that we used in Attack of the Clones or whatever it is. Like, do you think that's how they do it, or like they just are like, oh, we want to use this droid, let's create a scene to use it?
I think that's how they do it with directors who aren't as involved with the Star Wars franchise. I think that they write the script and then they talk to people like Pablo and Story Group to get ideas of where canon things can be put in. But I think in this case, Dave Filoni is directly involved, so he probably just already knows. He takes care of all that. That's my guess.
Right.
That'd be my guess too. I think maybe, some scene is written, and a guy like Robert, Star Wars fan, might have something specific in mind, but in which he might not know the specifics of everything. A bumbling little droid walks in and does this or that or whatever, and then someone like Dave or whatever might take a look, or maybe even the Story Group when they're reviewing it together, and they might make suggestions like that. And that's kind of what Story Group is for, is like they make people like Pablo's on the Story Group, I think. but they make suggestions to say, oh, for this ship, you could actually go with this, and that would actually make a connection there, or we can make this droid that droid, and you can have like a direct correlation there
Interesting.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then of course Dave would throw in his 2 cents as well. I'm sure if he has something in mind as well. But it's interesting how they can let someone who might not know Star Wars to like a T still make and produce and direct an episode, but then you got the other people kind of working behind the scenes to say, hey, use this, do that, and making the suggestions that they can kind of take to make it even better. So we see the nice big escape from Boba and Fennec. They steal Slave One. There's a big blaster shootout and everything like that. Fennec proved very useful, slamming out the hangar
Which apparently
doors.
they're going away from that name, I think, hey? Like they didn't use the name Slave One at all.
Yeah, so
He called it something else.
So he called it by the model name, which is the Slave
Fire
One.
spray?
Slave One is a Fire Spray 31 attack shuttle or whatever it's called, and and it is always and has been Slave One. It's going to be Slave One forever. In the hearts of every Star Wars fan out there, it's always Slave One.
Right.
There's Lego sets from 2 years ago that are called Slave One, and
I guess they're just being safe.
I think they're just being scared, honestly. Like safe is definitely
Cancel culture, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it's almost like they try to assume it's like, oh, where there isn't cancel culture, maybe there will be someday. Let's address this while it's not an issue, and then it becomes an issue because everyone's like, what the heck? Like,
Yeah,
there's no need to
all the
change
normal
this.
people are like, why
Yeah.
change this after like 50 years?
The name wasn't offensive or anything. I mean, like it was. I don't know. It was kind of a cool name. It was kind of unique. Like it's been
It's made to
around
be
forever.
menacing. That was the idea, because
Yeah.
Boba's a bad guy.
Yeah, it's menacing, right? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I've got my gripes with it. At least they didn't rename the ship. At least they just called it
Yeah,
by the model
true.
name.
Not yet.
Not
Yeah.
yet at least. But yeah, at least they he says, I need you to, what did he say to Fennec again? I'd like your help in recovering my fire spray or something like that. Like he
I
says,
thought you just said ship, but yeah.
he
I
says,
think ship would have been better. Hopefully he didn't say my fire spray.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
My Firefly class vessel.
at least he didn't call it the fire spray, right? I don't think he said that. So that
No.
tells me that it's not the title as the fire spray. It's just
Unless
he's
it's the
calling
only
it.
one.
Yeah, it's like I don't know. It's like Han Solo saying I need to get back to my YT 1300
1300, I think. Yeah.
and or I don't know, which is a kind of a clunky name to use, but he would just say the Falcon, but yeah, I guess with a cool model name like the Fire Spray, it's like they can kind of get away with it, but it's still it stings. It still stinks. So
Yeah, the problem is because clearly they don't want to go back to the original name. If I feel like people started complaining about calling it by like the manufacturer's name for that specific ship, they're probably going to make something else up instead.
right.
So I don't know if it's worth pushing. You know what I mean? It might go the wrong direction
Yeah.
as far as like as fans are concerned.
Darian, when was the first time that you heard it was called Slave One?
I don't even know. That's just what I know the ship as.
Yeah, it's
The
just
Lego
it's just
box,
this thing, right?
1999.
No, I think it's just this thing. Like people just kind of, it's always been a thing, right? Like everyone's always just
Yeah.
known it as Slave One, right? And so I think for a lot of people, using the model number is actually less familiar, and most people don't even know.
Oh, I had no idea it was the fire spray, like, or a fire spray model. Like I honestly had no idea.
Yeah,
So I just assumed it was Slave One. So even if he said like, "Oh, I have to go back to my ship," and he left it as that, but the fact that like he said like fire spray shows like they're like trying to get around Slave One.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
And
So-
awkwardly. They're
Yeah, and awkwardly, like just leave it. Just say my ship and just leave it at that.
because
yeah,
it even sounds weird. Let's say it was still called Slave One. So it leaves that very awkwardly for interpretation of you got to help me save my Slave One, right? So
yeah.
let's just say ship.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
they've been rebranding this thing very frequently, like in the last couple months, right? But only last year they'd used Slave One in a Star Wars comic. Like Lando says it. Lando says something Slave One, and and it was bolded as a title, right? Because that's how they do it in comics. Whenever someone's name or something comes up, it's usually bolded. And yeah, I'm pretty sure it was like in Star Wars issue number something or another, like last year, number 20 or whatever it was. But I was like, hold on a second, like that was only a year ago. Like, obviously this is a very like recent thing, and they were shooting Book of Boba last year. So when they recorded this episode, or when they shot the clips for this episode, like it was probably only a couple months after that comic book came out. And I'm trying to think if there was any backlash, and I honestly can't remember any. Like the only thing I can think of more recently is all the complaints that have been around this whole thing. But
it could be that while they were writing this series, somebody was like, "Oh wow, that's the name. We have to fix that."
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. All it takes is one strong voice, and
it just goes up the chain of command, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's too bad. But he gets the ship back, and here we go on the revenge spree I brought up earlier, killing off all the bikers, and then he goes for the Sarlacc pit. It was the best. It was
satisfying.
So refreshing, and
yeah, and especially because like it was like shooting a fish in a barrel. Like they can't do it.
Yeah,
it was quite cruel. Like it was not something that was very just, right?
Right.
Well, like it was revenging like his fallen like friends with the sand people, but they were defenseless. But that felt like Boba Fett because he's supposed to be underhanded and kind of dirty like that.
Do you even think it was them that killed the Tusken Raiders, and it wasn't?
Yeah, it was them because they spray painted their symbol on all the tents.
But he wipes out the whole crew, so I think that means like the planet's just now safe, maybe from their clan or their group or whatever. There was way more bikers than I actually thought that there would be, because he wiped out a lot. But it was so funny that he wiped them all out. Just boom, gone.
Did anyone else get like flashbacks to Luke saying like it's like shooting like muskrats or whatever?
Yeah.
What?
What are they called? Yeah,
Womp rats.
Womp rats. That's it. It's like because in that scene he's talking about how
it's like
back home in Tatooine they used to fly. Right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like the same idea, but they're shooting bikers with Slave One. I'm like, because you see the ship that Luke was shooting Womp rats with, right, in the background. It kind of been the same idea, flying over top, like shooting these Womp rats.
When he goes for the Sarlacc pit, to me that was like even more satisfying, because I kind of like the fact that he gets revenge for the Tusken Raiders that kind of helped him out for the last 4 years or so. But when he goes after the Sarlacc pit, I was like, this is cool, because like this is the
really
thing.
Oh man, yeah, I thought it was
kind of dumb.
I thought it was pretty dumb too.
Really? Oh, okay. When
like,
he goes to the Sarlacc,
just lowering the ship like into its mouth.
Yeah.
What could possibly go wrong?
Here's the thing about this, because like I don't know, but maybe it was just me, but I didn't expect it at all to be even alive, because he used his flamethrower to even get out of the thing.
That thing's huge, though.
I didn't. It was really big. It was way bigger than I thought it was. But when he uses his flamethrower to somehow get out, I thought that had killed it, right? So to me, when he was like lowering, I didn't even know ships could do that. But when he was lowering,
that's what I mean. That was my problem with it. Was like, okay, the thrusters for the Slave One are at the back. So how does it fly when it's facing the ground?
I have no idea.
It doesn't make any sense.
I have no
Just
idea.
put it in reverse.
That aside, because, well, I don't know. I mean, like the whole thing has an anti-grav thing to keep them in their seats, like when they're flying in space. So like maybe it's got some sort of
I'm sure there's something
anti-gravity.
Maybe there's thrusters on the side that turn around. Or
yeah. Like that. It wasn't super hard for me to kind of like wrap my head around, but I don't know. I wasn't expecting the Sarlacc to be alive, and then I thought the whole thing was actually quite exciting. And then when they used the seismic charge of all things to actually blow it up, I was like, that's so cool. I never get tired of the seismic charges. Like those are just so satisfying.
I will say, I didn't think this was an appropriate time for that, because let's say it was on any other angle, they would have died and blew up the Slave One.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It sounds like I like this sequence a lot more than you guys do, but
There's a lot of, I don't know. To me, the whole thing was just very unnecessary because he knew he had the armor. He should have memory of leaving the Sarlacc with the armor on. So
yeah,
clearly, he lost it after he got out.
Yeah.
he was
And then all the
severely-
levels of things that had to be, I guess, like tweaked or added in canon to make this whole thing work, to me was just ridiculous.
My thought on the armor thing, my thoughts were that he was just so disoriented when he got out that he just doesn't remember, right? And then he,
But his memory, any memory of it all, should be through the visor, which means he was wearing the armor.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, but I mean, to him, like, I mean, we see the visor, but maybe in
I
Star
think he
Wars,
would have
maybe
known.
their helmets are probably a little more clear than me just putting on one of these replica helmets and not being able to see a thing. But I don't know. I thought like, okay, even if he did, like, there was the one look up at the sky kind of thing, and then he kind of just faints, right? And so he was already out of it, just kind of wasted on the sand. And then he gets hit in the head, like later that night, right?
Yeah.
Like smoked with a
The job was
with the butt of a rifle or something. Yeah. So to me, I'm like, okay, you know, if he wakes up and realizes his armor's gone and doesn't remember who took it, kind of thing, then I'm not too surprised about that. Like maybe he thought it just sandstorm blew back into the hole or something like that. Who knows, right? Like, I mean,
I don't know. It's to me, it felt like they wanted to write in him getting revenge on the Sarlacc and needed an excuse to do it. But
Yeah, or like just they needed to show that like what happened to it because like we didn't know it was dead. Like it was like did the flamethrower kill it? Did it not?
yeah,
And now we know like it's dead because it has a seismic charge in its mouth.
yeah,
And like they're also showing us that like he lost his memory and like maybe like the damage that the Sarlacc pit did to him. Like it was actually I don't know. We knew it did damage to him, but like the amount, like he forgot that he lost his armor kind of thing.
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know if that's gonna be like we need to know that in the next few episodes, but
yeah.
I don't think so because they. Oh, you mean like a callback sort of thing? Yeah, I
'cause
don't know.
The Bacta tank, like even Fennec says in this episode, she says like the Bacta tank healed all his wounds, but
Mhm.
there's still scars on the inside, she says, right? So I don't know. I mean, like mental brain damage is is kind of like out of their probably area of topic of choice, but you know, it's plausible to think that okay, after all that, you know, he had like complete lack of water, smoked in the head, acid to the skin. You know, it's a lot of stuff for a guy to go through. I wouldn't blame him if he just forgot that he that he climbed out with his armor, right? But
I think that's what saved him, so he should have been able to remember that. But
yeah.
were you guys surprised that the Sarlacc was strong enough to hold a starship down, keep it from escaping?
The what? Sorry,
'Cause The Sarlacc, well, the Slave One was like super close. The Sarlacc
Oh.
grabs onto the tentacles, and
yeah.
the ship wasn't able to get away.
I had a hard time buying that only because we saw a tentacle grab Lando's leg and struggle to pull him in.
Yeah,
to the
that's
pit.
true.
That's the only reason why I doubted that. Literally, because
That's a good point.
the
I didn't
size
think
of
it.
this, the
the
size
heat coming
of
off these thrusters, like
this,
those
Yeah.
tentacles, how do they handle that heat?
Exactly.
Well, obviously, the explanation is Lando is really strong.
yeah. Just a little higher.
Yeah, and then they shoot it and it lets go. And in this, it's holding on to the Slave One right next to the thrusters. There's no problem.
Yeah, like the only because that's literally the only reason why it was a hard sell for me, because this thing is huge. Like I don't know if you guys have seen like a schematic of like a 2D drawing of the side profile, you know, the sand cut open with the whole insides and everything like that. It's always drawn extremely big and it's just rooted in the planet, right? Like it's just this giant like underground sack of stomach. And like the tongue is that little beak. Like that's just the tongue.
Yeah.
Right. The whole creature is like beneath that thing. Right. And then there's also like all these spiny tentacle things that it's like rooted itself in the planet with. So that's why I thought, oh, the seismic charge, that's perfect. Like that'll do the job. That'll kill it. But
Right.
but the actual like strength of this tentacle, I was like, Okay, I believe that it is that strong to hold the ship, but now I just don't know why it couldn't pull Lando in. Like,
That's a good point. We're all over the
one
place
of them
here.
is wrong, right? Like,
Again, we gotta tweet Pablo and ask what's going on with this.
I feel like Indiana Jones, the bag of rice in one hand and the idol in the other. I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
which one's more?
Which one's real?
Yeah. Okay, so after this,
Oh.
sorry.
One last thing with the Sarlacc, because there was a lot in this scene.
Yeah.
They also canonized, I don't know if you noticed this, they canonized the original design of the Sarlacc, and they kept the canon of the special edition Sarlacc pit.
Yeah, they did both. Yeah.
Yeah, which is neat because people are like, oh, George Lucas keeps tweaking everything or whatever Sarlacc. They added this beak thing, right?
Yeah.
Now in this one, when we meet it, it doesn't have the beak, and the beak doesn't show up till later. We see that it comes out. So technically, both are now are canon.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. It's like
Which I thought was
it's
cool.
the tongue, right? It's the little kind of thing that comes up to grab the
but when you
food,
watch Return of the Jedi, the latest version,
there's no
from like
there's
the
no beak.
90s on, it's just the beak is sticking out of the top, so you're left to believe that it's like that all the time.
It's just a pit with all the teeth around the hole.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Which is what we see at the beginning of when we see the Sarlacc in this scene.
Right, exactly. That's a great point to bring up. Yeah. And I guess maybe it was hiding down there because, I mean, it has taken damage, right? Like he did really unleash his flamethrower inside the stomach of this thing. So, maybe it was still hurting or whatever. But yeah, that's a great point to bring up. So can't say the same for Yub Nub. You hear that, Phil?
You and that song. Still good, man. Still good song.
It's still
they gotta
good.
find a home for it. They gotta recanonize it somewhere.
They do. It's still good. All right. So around the fire pit, Boba says something to Fennec, and I wrote it down. He says, "How many times have you been hired to do a job that was avoidable if they just took the time to think?" And Boba thinks that crime lords are dumb. Like he thinks that a lot of them are just miscommunicative. Believes that a lot more lives could have been saved. He says, and he says their kind is dying because of the idiocy of others. And I thought that was really interesting. And like, it gives him a lot of motive because it makes me wonder before this episode, I was like, why does he want to become a crime lord? Other than that, it's the next step up from just being a bounty hunter. Like, why does he want to do that? And, I was trying to rack my head because like nothing that Django's ever done ever really was of that level. Like Django had his own achievement of having a son, right?
Was a simple man make his way in the galaxy.
Yeah, exactly. And his biggest life achievement was, I mean, like it was nice that he got this clone army in his name, in his face and everything like that. But what was really the selling point when he made that arrangement with Dooku was that he had a son out of it, right? He had his own clone that he was able to call a son. And that was like the biggest thing to him. That was like the biggest life achievement, I think, for Django that really kind of, I guess, made his life meaningful. And Boba's never had that. And he's never had family. And he's always felt alone. And in the Clone Wars and stuff, he experiences a lot of that stuff. So when we see him in the book of Boba Fett, the Tuskens are really this family that he's never had. And he's really this clan that he's kind of been absorbed into and been pulled into. And he really throws himself back at it as a learning experience. And he comes out of it a better man. And he says that to Fennec. He says, I learned a lot. Like I'm more powerful because I'm not alone, right? And because I can have others. And so he offers Fennec the chance of staying with him and offers her his loyalty and a cut on whatever success comes out of his endeavors. And I thought that this episode was really not just the best episode, but it also gave him purpose in this entire show, and the reason kind of why he's becoming a crime lord. So, I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, it shows he has a lot of respect for like the job of being a bounty hunter too. It's not just killing to him, like.
Yeah.
And like you said, yeah, it totally sets up the show, and it like, instead of just, I don't know, like you said, just taking up the next role, being the crime lord, he's like actually doing it for a reason, trying to make a change, which is kind of cool, I guess.
Yeah, because bounty hunters in Star Wars, they're basically mercenaries for hire, right? They'll do any job. So I think he's growing past that, and he even says in the scene they're talking about Josh, he specifically says how many lives could be saved as well, which is showing that maybe he is growing past the standard bounty hunter of just whatever it takes, just get paid,
Mm-hmm.
to actually having a value of other people in the galaxy as well, right?
Yeah, definitely. That's a huge one because as a guy who took on contracts for money, he like I'm sure he had his own. He didn't just take any job, right? Like he probably would have had this Boba Fett. He would have had the option of whatever. But he says, yeah, how many lives could have been saved? And when he talks about all these crime lords being idiots and miscommunicative and all that stuff, I think like he's just kind of perceiving this whole thing of like, we kill your men, you kill our men, kind of thing, back and forth. Like, his new thinking is like, hold on a second, if we just all, what he says in the Mandalorian, like, everybody put your guns down, let's have a chat. And he's the negotiator now, right? He's not so much about the
Yeah.
like, let's just kill everybody. Like, he's not a murderer.
He's the Obi-Wan of the crime world.
Yeah, I mean, like, Boba Fett he's not a murderer. He's a professional, and he's like one of the biggest professionals in the galaxy, right?
Tell that to the bikers.
Okay, well, he's a professional that you shouldn't mess
Within
with.
reason.
Let's put it that way. Yeah. But yeah, he's a scary dude because you don't want to take anything out on Boba Fett, but at the same
They
time,
needed to do
like,
something like that, though. They needed to show that Boba Fett's still willing to do what it takes, and like he's not gonna be dishonored, right?
Right, yeah, and and like loyalty is a big thing for him right now. So whatever we knew of him before, is kind of it's the good parts of Boba have been amplified, right? Him coming out of this experience with the Tusken Raiders. So, like, there's a lot of like little moments in the Clone Wars where he has a bit of loyalty, and he's given up the the authenticity of completing a job when he realized that this princess in the box on the train was intended to go to this crime
Gross king.
this like grease monger dude that was awaiting his prize, his trophy, right? And he realizes who's in this box and this on when he's on this train, and figures out, oh, these assassins that are trying to come after the prize, or the treasure that we're trying to protect, we're actually helping the bad guys here. So he actually kind of gives that up, and then Ventress comes up with a better plan and puts him in the box, gets paid, and the girl gets saved. So he gets a little double cross, and he's probably a little chapped because of that. But yeah, like, great Clone Wars episode, really, really good Clone Wars episode. And the train heist episode in Clone Wars, I forget, do you know what season it was? So like season 4, season 5?
Yeah, I feel like it was earlier than that, like maybe season 3.
I think it was like, season 3 or 4 maybe. But it was so good, and I don't remember anyone complaining that.
It was a one-off episode too, as opposed to the series episodes.
Yeah, exactly. It was during the phase of like Ventress becoming a bounty hunter and all that. But yeah, it was kind of like this really good one-shot episode. I said it before, but a good train heist is always a good plot point. And I don't remember anyone complaining about Boba being this, a guy with a heart, right? Like no one ever said anything bad about his caring for this character that he only just met and realized is actually a captive. That part is like one of the few things that sticks with me anytime I see this new side of Boba Fett that we've never seen before in this show. Is like, he's not just a bounty hunter, and he's not just a guy that's killed people. He's also a guy that's saved people, and he's a guy that's done the right thing more than a few times. And he's also kind of come to terms with Mace Windu and killing his father and everything like that, because he tries to kill Mace Windu, other people push him to do it, right? And Aura Singh is always over his shoulder trying to make him do the bad thing, but realistically, he's actually not that guy, and it ends off with him going to prison because of his attempted murders. But Mace Windu kind of has a word with him, and I guess they kind of work it out. He tries to come back at him later, but yeah, I don't know. It doesn't. That was kind of the last of it. Like they never brought up the Boba Mace Windu revenge story after that. After he goes to prison, he comes out, he breaks out of prison again when the whole prison break happens, and it's never a plot that they repeated. So that to me tells me that, oh, okay, well, he was set on revenge at one point for killing his father, but he's not so hell bent on it that he actually went after him again, right? Like he let it go, and that's a pretty honorable thing to do, like to let go the murderer of your own father. That's like the only family that you've ever had. That's a big deal, right? So
It's a very big deal.
Yeah, it's a big character thing for sure. There's a few other things actually. So the overlay of the mask and the back to tank, end of the flashbacks. I think we already brought that up. Boba's fully healed, and so what we didn't talk about was the present. And this is like the last section of the episode. We kind of go to that cantina that the Twi'lek owns. I forget the name of the establishment. We see Black Chrysanthemum just rage on a bunch of Trandoshans.
He's in a drunken rage. He was seeing these Trandoshans like win at cards, and they're like making all this money. He's sitting there just like throwing the drink back, just getting madder and madder. That was really funny. It reminded me almost of something I would think Gimli would do.
Black Chrysanthemum, for anyone who didn't know, I think it was Trandoshans that ended up making him a gladiator and kind of sending him into fight arenas to fight. Yeah, I know. The relationship between Wookiees and Trandoshans is also just really bad, but I'm just guessing that it was Trandoshans that sent him in there.
The EU for that is the Trandosha. Is that the home planet? I'm not sure. Off the top of my head.
I actually don't know.
Their home world is right next to Kashyyyk.
Yeah,
and they're known
bad
as
neighbors.
They're really known as like poachers.
Yeah,
like the Trandoshan, the peoples.
They try to hunt,
and so they often would go to
them.
Kashyyyk and just try to capture a bunch of Wookiees and sell them into slavery.
Yeah.
So there's always been...
In the first episode, apparently one of them gave a pelt to Boba Fett.
Yeah. That's right.
A Wookiee pelt. So obviously...
That's right.
Yeah, because I was very confused watching it because I didn't know about that. I'm like, why is, like, just let it go. Like, why are you so angry at these alligator-looking dudes? And he's like, that makes more sense.
Yes.
And again, like we mentioned, yeah, like, it's, like, people that, like, watch EU stuff and that kind of thing, like, this makes sense to them why he's doing this. So it just, it's cool that they're including all this stuff.
Yeah, and that kind of makes it canon now, too, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure if that was ever brought up in Clone Wars just as, like, an off comment or anything, but now it's, like, for sure canon.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There was a Clone Wars arc where a bunch of Trandoshans captured Chewbacca and Ahsoka.
That's
and
the only time I can think of, but that wasn't specifically them versus Wookiees.
No, yeah. Well, the Wookiees did liberate Ahsoka and Chewbacca, and there was a bit of a fight between a bunch of Trandoshans and Wookiees there. But yeah, there was never any like Clone War style event between, like no giant war between the two planets or whatever. It's always just been these guys are kind of like pirates, and the Wookiees have always been like, treated badly. Like whether it's the Trandoshans that are hunting them, the Empire enslaving them, or whatever, right? Like there's always something going on. So
poor Wookiees.
Yeah,
they're intelligent and they're strong.
It also adds a lot of character to Black Chrysanthemum because like we just kind of perceive him as this Wookiee that tried to kill Boba, and there's a lot more of him in the comic books, but he's definitely a guy who's not let go of the life he's living currently and the kind of all the reasons that brought him there, and the Trandoshans that are partying away and making profits off gambling or whatever else. I guess they didn't do a thing to him, but it's just he probably just was just so mad at,
Yeah.
you know, like just probably stewing in the last episode's result, right? Him, just being once again captured, once again sold as a tribute to somebody else who thankfully let him go. But it was just another bad incident, right? And he goes to drink his sorrows away, and he's a Wookiee, so he can't do that really. And
I have a hard time thinking he's gonna stay loyal to Boba Fett though. I really see them like fighting together, and then Black Chrysanthemum just like turning on Boba Fett. I could see that happening like episode 6.
I don't know, because what we're seeing here is Chrysanthemum.
Boba did let him go.
He has an issue. Yeah, he did, and that's why I think it's a big part of it, because we're seeing that Chrysanthemum has an issue with he's been betrayed a lot.
But did he not offer to hire him?
Yeah,
He did at the end, yeah. And that's why I think this might be a growth at the end of the series for Black Chrysanthemum, because he'll finally work someone who's honorable. It's probably going to treat him properly, and then he's going to have to come to terms with that because he thinks everyone's going to betray him.
Right.
I think that's pretty likely as well. Yeah, because he's kind of the way that they're portraying him in this episode is kind of the way that he's been portrayed before in the pages and everything. And yeah, it's I could see there be some sort of development there. I know Black Chrysanthemum's also had some kind of loyalty, I guess, in a little ways towards a character in the comics called Dr. Aphra. They had a bit of a partnership going on for a little bit. But I thought that was kind of cool. He hires him as like a muscle, just for his crew that doesn't really exist other than the 4 cyber kids and the 2 Gamorrean guards. So it was a bit neat.
Yeah, it'd be cool to see him like in the next episodes and like fighting with Boba. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah,
I do hope they do that.
That would be
I
pretty
feel
neat.
like there's got to be more to it, because there's the huge fight scene, then the woman who runs the canteen tries to talk him out of it, saying she'll wipe his bar tab and everything, and then he decides to hell with it and he just rips off the Trandoshan's arm, which we finally see a Wookiee tear an arm off. So that's pretty
yeah, that was pretty sweet. Yeah.
And then Boba approaches him and says he's got a job for him. And then we only see him really be a security guard at the meeting. And that to me doesn't feel like it's worth approaching him for that job.
No.
So I feel like there has to be something else that's going to come up that will be his, like an actual difficult quest, essentially, that he's given Black Chrysanthemum to do.
Well, this is what leads me to kind of the final thing of the episode is when Fennec says, well, Boba says something about preparing for war, and then Fennec says, credits can buy muscle if you know where to look. And then the Mandalorian theme plays at the very end, leading us to believe
they're going to try to hire Mando.
Yeah, they're going to hire him, but it's like they can't just hire one guy, right? Like I think what we're going to see over the next couple episodes is even a return of other bounty hunters that maybe have made appearances in the past, like Bosk.
An army of Mandalorians.
An army of mercenary, right? This is the book of Boba Fett. Like this is Boba's world as a crime lord. Like he's not going to hire just anyone. He's going to hire
Such a weak way.
He's going to hire the best guns on the market, right? And so
come on, Hondo.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. So yeah, like I think Mando's a likely return. I think like we're gonna come face to face with obviously him, Black Chrysanthemum, Boba himself, Fennec,
young Grogu.
Yeah, I mean, like who knows?
Right?
Like we could see a lot of bounty hunters make appearances in this upcoming series. Just to like a handful of really good bounty hunters versus an army of pikes. Like it's not something that we hadn't seen before. Like there's bounty hunters are very capable people, right? Like in the Clone Wars really established that a good bounty hunter is one of the pretty wicked, right? Like they can kill a lot
because they're resourceful.
Yeah,
and they fight dirty.
Exactly, and like Master Assassin Fennec Shand, the whole title and everything. Like it's kind of true. Like she killed like a ton of stormtroopers when they were fighting the stormtroopers. They are stormtroopers, but she killed them all better than Han Solo would have, right? And she's good at what she does. So yeah, I think that we could see a lot of returning and familiar faces that maybe we haven't seen for a long time.
Do you think that scene with the crime lords at the table is like straight out of The Godfather?
Yeah, totally.
It's like literally the exact same thing.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Don't like promising not to fight and they turn on each other kind of thing.
I
don't trust Black Chrysanthemum. Like I could also see the families, hopefully not, but
I
going against their word.
I don't know about you guys,
100%.
but I
They're
love
definitely
that.
going to. At least one of them will. I'm guessing the
Yeah.
dog guy,
Yeah,
which was
True.
the
He did get the most screen
cartoony-
time.
who's the bitter one? Yeah, I love that the Rancor settled the small uprising that they almost had. You know, they're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, why do we let you sit on there? Wait, why are you in charge?" Kind of thing, right? And then
Yeah.
the Rancor
like see
just like-
claws come to the floor.
yeah, and then
like,
Boba's just like,
"She gets a
everyone
bit
calm
hungry."
down. Here, yeah, she gets
There's
a
a
bit
chicken
hungry
bone down there.
sometimes, Yeah. There you go. And they're
I
all
gotta
like,
say, though-
what? Like we're sitting
And
on.
they all
Rancor?
sat down again. If I was there, I would not sit down with a Rancor and like a pit because I could just open up at any moment right below me.
Yeah, I don't know. It was cool. It was cool seeing that stuff and like get some use out of the Rancor and all that. You know,
Yeah.
it's pretty neat. But yeah, do you guys think Mandalorian's gonna make an appearance in the next episode, or are we gonna have to wait longer for this?
I think wait probably.
Yeah. Maybe the end of next episode.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah,
I don't think
But-
they'll jump right to it.
The next episode literally could just be like an episode of them like getting people to join their squad that are just like familiar to
Yeah.
Star Wars.
right.
With, like,
Like
they
a
catch word of where the pikes are and they're like prepping for battle.
Yeah, exactly. We've seen it in so many other movies and
Get the
TV shows and
montage.
stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Get the
Maybe
montage
like maybe
going.
they could. I doubt it. They could leave Tatooine. Maybe they could take the fire spray to somewhere else, and
yeah, the
yeah, who knows?
fire
It,
spray.
it'll be interesting to see who they bring, right?
Yeah, definitely. There was a lot of complaints online about this show taking place 100% on Tatooine, but I actually don't really know if any of those complaints are valid. Like this whole show is kind of
Yeah, like where else would they go?
yeah, like it's also showing
It's a
us,
local issue, right?
right? Like it's a local thing, and it's about who sits on the Jabba's throne. It's about his flashbacks on Tatooine, his time in the desert,
Yeah.
the 5 years he spent with the Tuskens, right?
That
So-
being said, I could see going to say Nar Shaddaa, dealing with hot stuff.
Now that the flashbacks are over, I could see
Yeah.
us moving on from just staying in Tatooine.
Right.
Like obviously resolve the Pike thing, but I could see there being like a small detour or two
Or
to
Kessel, I guess, in this case.
right. Like, oh, we got to hire some people. Let's take Slave One, go off planet, go hire some mercenaries on.
I may know a few. Comes back with all the leftover clones. Just all these Django's.
I have an idea. Let's go back to Camino on Tapoca City and hire. Oh wait.
We'll get a few more.
Yeah. So Tapoca City, all gone, all destroyed.
That's true.
Yeah, it could be interesting. We could see some major spoilers for even Bad Batch. Maybe we'll see members of the Bad Batch show up. Maybe they're mercenaries now.
That's what I was thinking. Like they're still going.
They probably
They're
have
still
growth
rolling.
enhancement though, so they'll all be really old.
Maybe we'll
That'd
see.
be huge though. The full squad.
Yeah, a bunch of old farts. That'd be really funny.
Yeah, maybe we'll see. I don't know. I think we might see High Singer, like the crazy droid with all the guns. He's got that fan looking head shape thing.
Yeah.
Maybe Embo with the
IG-88?
with the flying hat thing and the dog. Yeah. IG-88 maybe, or IG
Didn't
somebody.
2 of the original 5 bounty hunters recently die in the comics in that bounty hunter wars?
Oh, Zuckuss and Forloom.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they had a bit of an outing, I guess. There was something. Yeah. Yeah. I can't exactly remember. I think one of them might have ended up living, but the other one died or something like that. It was one of the two, or they both died, and that was at the end of it. But I don't know. I mean, they're 2 bounty hunters that come out of the classic movie. I wouldn't be surprised if they were like, yeah, let's just.
It would be a shame to
back.
kill them off in a comic. Just saying.
Yeah, it kind of would be, honestly. So yeah, maybe they'll bring them back. I don't know. Who knows? Like one of them's a droid, one of them's like kind of a cyborg thingy, I guess. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
They're a alien bug species.
Yeah.
And,
So
like,
maybe they can.
they wear that
rejuvenate or
respirator 'cause
whatever. Yeah.
They breathe methane, or I think.
Right. I'm fingers crossed for Bosk though. Bosk, I would love to see Bosk live action. Bosk
Or he
again.
could just hire Dirge. Dirge did the whole thing.
Yeah, they brought Dirge back in the Bounty Hunter series. You know, why not, right?
Maybe that's why.
Yeah,
They're,
maybe
reminding people about the characters. They could bring it into the series. That'd be cool.
Right. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Cad Bane. I don't know. Maybe there's some bad blood that needs to be resolved still. Who knows?
Because I guess we all consider him dead because of those reels, but technically that's not canon. So Cad Bane could show up.
He could. Yeah.
I hope he doesn't, but he can.
Just
because I want the original Boba story. That's the only reason why.
Yeah, that's a cancel Clone Wars arc. They should have just finished, but oh well. All right, last thoughts on this episode. Speculation going forward. Darian, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we're gonna see Mandalorian by the end of the next episode. Like I said, we're gonna do some recruiting. Gonna see some familiar faces, and I think it's gonna be like Boba and his crew versus like everyone else. That's my guess. The whole like we're going neutral thing was BS. I'm calling it.
You think he's gonna betray them? He's like, because
I don't think he's gonna betray them. He's got too much like respect, as we've seen. Like
that would be a good crime lord move, though. I just ask that you don't betray me, and then he does the work and then kills everyone else.
But like, why doesn't he just take the slave one right now and go kill the Pikes?
That's a good point. They're on foot. Just gun them down. And they came on. I mean, we know that they came on the city bus, so on city transit. So they clearly don't have like ship capabilities.
What about you, Blake? Speculation. Last few words.
Yeah, I think we're onto something here. I think next episode is going to be like a Seventh Samurai-esque recruit all the friends episode. Like, come on, be like, no, I'm retired. I don't do that no more. Like, just one more battle. We got to do this. Like, no, I can't do it. And then like his house gets set on fire. He's like, that's it. I gotta get back at these guys. I think it's gonna be that for like the entire episode.
Nice. All right, guys. Well, thanks for coming back this week, and I guess we'll hopefully see you both in the next one.
Sounds good. I'll be there.
All right, and to all you guys listening at home, thank you so much for tuning into the show, and we'd love to hear from you. Like I opened up with, I think I actually forgot to play the Book of Boba theme song in the beginning there, so that's all right. Next time. And shoot us an email, swescapepodcast@gmail.com, as well as our Twitter at swescapepodcast. All things at swescapepodcast. Look us up, subscribe, and leave a review. That would be awesome. May the force be with you guys, and we'll see you next time on Star Wars Escape Pod.